Shoto, 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 Shoto. If you've been anywhere in the Super Smash Bros. Community for the past little while, the word Shoto has probably been on your mind way too often. That would be because we got the E3 reveal of Kazuya Mishima from the Tekken series as our next fighter in the Super Smash Bros. Fighters Pass. Ever since his reveal, the Smash community has been split whether he counts as a Shoto or not. Some people are finding out what the term means for the first time, myself included, and some people who are fans of the FGC are just very pissed off with Smash Bros. Players for calling him a Shoto. So what exactly does this term mean? Is Kazuma a Shoto? And what other Shotos do we have in the Super Smash Bros. Series already? Let's talk about it. How's it going, folks? My name is Jacob and welcome back to the channel. You saw that title up there. Today we're going to give you the definitive answer to the Shoto debate. So first off, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a Shoto? Shoto is a term that's specific to the Street Fighter series, and it defines an archetype of a character that uses a combination of a fireball, a Shoryuken, and a Tatsu. To put all that technical jargon into layman's terms, this essentially means that you've got a forward-facing projectile, an uppercut attack, and a spinning forward-moving attack. Now traditionally this would literally mean that you would have a fireball, an uppercut, and a spinning forward-facing kick. However, not everybody in Smash Bros. Really fits into that category. So given the fact that people are so sensitive about this and there's so many arguments going on in the Super Smash Bros. Community about the Shoto term, I figured, hey, let's see how every character stacks up as a Shoto in the game. Yes, I wasted way too much time in my life doing this stupid video. Now here's how I'm going to be judging the characters in this video. We're going to be judging them based on 1, if they have a projectile, 2, if they have a forward-moving spinning attack, and 3, if they have an uppercut attack. Now I may make some interpretations depending on how I'm feeling. Some moves might be considered uppercuts, some moves might be considered forward-moving attacks, but for the most part it's just going to come down to a case-by-case basis, and if you guys want to argue that, you can feel free to do that in the comments below. So with that all being said, be prepared to strap in, folks. This is going to be a long and overly unnecessary deep dive into every single character as a Shoto. Let's check it out. The diversity in both characters and moves in Super Smash Bros. Means that there are some characters that could be defined as a Shoto, depending on what your definition is, so we're going to stretch it a little bit today. Now before we get started shortening everything down, we're just going to cut out all the characters that have no projectiles. These characters have no possible way of being a Shoto, no matter what other moves they've got. So the characters we're going to be cutting today are Donkey Kong, Captain Falcon, Jigglypuff, Marth, Lucina, Ganondorf, Roy, Chrom, Meta Knight, Ike, Little Mac, and Shulk. These are the only characters in the game that have no projectile whatsoever. And as you'll see later on, there are quite a lot of unorthodox projectiles in the Smash Bros. Series. Now let's move on to all the characters that disqualify as any type of Shoto whatsoever. They can be disqualified either for not having an uppercut or not having a forward-moving spinning attack. So the first character up is going to be Link. Unfortunately, Link gets disqualified because he does not have an uppercut move. Every one of his upward-facing moves uses some sort of sword slash, and so for that reason, he's disqualified. Samus is unfortunately the victim of the same fate. She's got tons of projectiles, but unfortunately no uppercut and no forward-moving spinning attack. This means the same logic would also apply to Dark Samus. Our next character is Yoshi. Now while Yoshi does have his egg throw attack, and he does have egg rolled as a forward-moving spinning attack, unfortunately none of his upward-facing moves use his uppercut, and so for that reason he's being cut. Kirby technically has a projectile attached to his up B, and his dash attack does allow him to spin while he's using it. However, he has no true uppercuts with the stubby arms that he has, and so unfortunately he's out of the running too. Fox does have his blaster as a projectile and his forward air as a forward-moving spinning attack, but all of his upward-facing attacks unfortunately use kicks, so he's out of the run as well. Next up is Pikachu. Unfortunately he has the same problem, having a neutral B for a projectile and a back air as a spinning moving forward attack. However, he does not have an uppercut attack. Most of his upward-facing attacks use his tail. The Ice Climber's side B is a forward-moving spinning attack, however, once again, they're missing the uppercut. They just use their mallets for all of their upwards-facing attacks. Unfortunately, Sheik lacks in both categories, with no spinning forward-moving attack and no uppercut as well. Like its evolution, Pichu's back air acts as a spinning moving attack, however, once again, it does not have any uppercuts. Young Link falls victim to the same problem as Link, having no forward moving spinning attack, and with only sword slashes as uppercuts, he's got a little chance of getting in here. Mewtwo fails in both categories with no spinning attacks and no uppercuts, alongside his flat friend Mr. Game & Watch, who once again has no uppercuts and no spinning attacks. Pit and Dark Pit fall victim to the same problem. They can spin with their side Bs, however that only happens if the attack misses, and that's not really the point of a Shoto. Zero Suit Samus does spin with her forward air, but unfortunately has no uppercut attack. Snake's dash attack is a somersault attack, which does technically count as a spinning attack, however he does not have any uppercuts. Pokemon Trainer has a wide variety of moves, but unfortunately still doesn't count as a Shoto. Ivysaur's Razor Leaf does count as a projectile, and Squirtle's side B withdrawal is still technically a forward-moving spinning attack, but no character has an uppercut. Lucas has PK Fire, which is definitely enough of a fireball attack. Also, when he launches forward with PK Thunder, that also technically causes him to spin, meaning he does have a spinning moving forward attack. However, all of his upwards attacks use either his legs or his massive noggin, meaning unfortunately he's out of the running too. Now Sonic's a little bit hard to place because his only projectile is technically his up B spring, which, you know what, that should just disqualify him outright. King DDD's down tilt roll is technically a forward moving spinning attack, but he also has no uppercut, disqualifying him as well. Olimar's neutral air is a spinning attack which you can move forward, so I could technically count that, but he still has no uppercut, so he is getting chopped. Unfortunately, the third link in a row also fails this test. With no spinning moving attacks and no uppercuts, he's unfortunately on the chopping block. Wolf also unfortunately goes the way of Fox, since he does not have any spinning attacks nor uppercuts. Villager's neutral air does cause him to spin in midair, which I will technically count, however he still has no uppercuts, meaning he does not count. Even with Wii Fit Trainer's unorthodox up air, which I could still technically count, she has no spinning attacks, therefore she gets disqualified. Greninja's unfortunately lacking in both categories too, meaning he is not part of the Shoto roster. While Palutina's Nair spins you right round, unfortunately it's not a move where she herself spins, therefore we're gonna disqualify her. Like most of the other fighters, Robin's upward facing attacks usually use their sword, meaning that they are unfortunately disqualified. Duck Hunt's neutral air is a spinning attack which I will allow, however he has no uppercuts being, well, a dog, so unfortunately he's got no dog in this fight. Cloud's finishing touch technically counts as a spinning attack, but he's not able to move during the attack. That on top of the fact that he has no uppercut means he is cut out of this race. Bayonetta has an uppercut involving her gun, which, I don't know man, I guess I could count that. And her side B also can lead into a spinning upward facing attack, but since you have to get hit by the side B first, I don't think I'm gonna count it this time around. While Inkling's roller does spin, unfortunately the Inkling itself does not spin. That tied in with the fact that there are no uppercut attacks means that unfortunately Inkling's getting cut from this one as well. Like a lot of other characters, Ridley's neutral air allows him to spin, which I could count, but with no uppercuts, he's unfortunately out too. Simon and Richter have absolutely no shortage of projectiles, but unfortunately they both lack in the other categories, taking them out of this race as well. King K. Rool's up tilt is actually an uppercut for once, but he has no spinning moves, unfortunately he's out as well. Once again, Isabel's neutral air is actually a spinning move using her pom-poms, so that could count. However, she's still disqualified for having no uppercut. Piranha Plant's neutral air and up B both technically spin, but with no arms to really do an uppercut with, I can't really allow the plant to continue. Joker's dash attack actually is a spinning moving kick. We're getting onto something here, but unfortunately all of his upwards attack uses dagger, meaning that he unfortunately has no uppercuts. Sorry Joker, you never seen it coming. Hero once again uses a lot of sword slash for his upward facing attacks, meaning unfortunately he's out of this race too. Byleth lacks both a spin and an uppercut, so unfortunately it looks like this teacher is getting schooled. Min Min's Ram arm is technically a projectile, and her up B in midair technically counts as an uppercut, but she has no forward moving spinning attacks, so she's out of this race too. Steve is Steve. Unfortunately, he's got no dog in this fight either. This dude doesn't spin whatsoever. Sephiroth's upward attacks are all sword swings, and he has no spinning attack, meaning that unfortunately he should just go back to staying in my dreams. Pyra's sword technically counts as a projectile with her side B, and she actually does have a spinning attack using her neutral B, as little as it moves her. Unfortunately, like a lot of other sword users, her sword just technically counts as a sword swing and has no proper uppercut. Mithra's up B also technically counts as a projectile, but she's lacking in both categories as well, meaning that this lady is unfortunately not part of it. Mii Brawler can technically have a projectile in the form of shock put, and does actually have an upward thrusting uppercut attack, but unfortunately he lacks in any kind of spinning attack. Mii Sword Fighter can have a few different projectiles for a neutral B and actually has a spinning attack side B. Unfortunately, his sword also means that he likely will not be doing any uppercuts. And while Mii Gunner has projectiles coming out the freaking ass, unfortunately this doesn't translate into any of the other two categories. So after all of our cuts have been made from the previous categories, this is what the roster looks like. Not all that impressive, is it? Now, despite all the cuts that we made, there are still a lot of characters on this roster that are blank, meaning that there are quite a lot of characters in this game that, some way or another, could technically count as a Shoto. So first, let's talk about Mario. Mario does actually have a fireball for his neutral B, which is the exact definition we're looking for. On top of that, Mario's up tilts and his up Bs are both technically uppercuts, and Mario's down air is a moving spinning attack that he can move back and forth with. So while Mario isn't really a traditional Shoto character, we're gonna put him in a new category called the So-sos. Our next character in the category is also Ness. Ness has a lot of projectiles, including one very infamous one. On top of that, when Ness uses PK Thunder on himself, that causes him to spin, meaning it's a spinning forward moving attack. And while his up tilt is technically a PK attack, it does also come out in the form of an uppercut attack, so I'd say that's pretty much as close as we get to a Shoto. Surprisingly, they're joined by Princess Peach. Peach uses her turnip as a projectile. She can also float cancel her spinning neutral air while moving forward, making it a forward moving spinning attack. And finally, her up tilt also counts as an uppercut. Up next, Bowser's neutral B is not technically a fireball, but does still count as a projectile. Plus it is fire, I mean, that's as close as we're gonna get, right? On top of that, Bowser's grounded up B also counts as a forward moving spinning attack, and his up tilt also kind of looks like an uppercut. I mean, it is a Bowser version of an uppercut, so a lot more savage, but hey, it's still got the same arm motion. The next sort of Shoto on our list is yet another one of the princesses, Princess Zelda. Zelda's side B is a fireball, which makes her argument a little bit more convincing. On top of that, a lot of her upwards facing attacks do happen to use her fist in an uppercut-like motion, and while it's not technically true to the Shoto terminology, her up B is still technically a forward-moving spinning attack. Dr. Mario faces quite a lot of the same problems as Mario, so he's still technically a Pseudo-Shoto. His neutral B pill projectiles are a little bit less convincing than Mario's fireballs, although he does still have the same uppercut attacks, but his down B is actually a spinning moving forward attack. Up next is Falco. Falco's got his laser, which acts pretty much similarly to a fireball, sorta, if you squint. On top of that, his forward air is a spinning forward-facing attack, and his infamous up B is technically an uppercut. Wario's our next character to talk about, and he's a little unorthodox. His only projectile comes from his motorcycle, which he has to ride, then dismount, and then throw, so he kinda sorta counts as a projectile character. But his neutral air is a spinning forward-moving attack, and his up tilts do still technically move in an uppercut-like motion. Next up is Diddy Kong, who of course is packing the bananas and the peanuts for his projectiles. His dash attack is also a spinning forward-moving attack, and he uses his fists in his up smash, making him a perfect contender for a Pseudo-Shoto. Next up is Lucario, whose Aura Sphere would count as his projectile. His neutral air does count as a forward-moving spin attack, and his up smash does use his fists in an uppercut-like motion, making him part of the Pseudo-Shotos. Oddly enough, if your name ends in Ario, it seems like you are a Shoto in this game. Rob is our next So-so, using his laser as his projectile attack. His side B is also a forward-moving spinning attack, regardless of how little it actually moves him, and his up tilt counts as an uppercut, if a robot could actually uppercut. Oddly enough, Rosalina and Luma also technically count as So-so Shotos. Luma itself counts as a projectile neutral B, but during the attack, the Luma also gets sent forward flying, kind of doubling up one attack in the other. And during Rosalina's up tilt, Luma also helps in by using an uppercut using its tiny little arms. So while Rosalina herself might not be a Shoto, Luma really saves the entire package. Up next is Pac-Man, who's got quite a variety of different projectiles in his neutral B slot. His neutral air also counts as a spinning forward-moving attack, and his up tilt is an uppercut, making him a perfect candidate. Next up is Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. obviously has the neutral B cannonball, making that a perfect forward-facing projectile. Also hitting the opposite direction of the side B while using the move causes Bowser Jr. to spin, and there is a hitbox on it, so that's a spinning forward-moving attack. And while Bowser Jr. himself is not giving the uppercut, that fork certainly looks like it's going in an uppercut motion. Corrin obviously has the projectile as their neutral B, and their dash attack also causes them to spin in midair. But what gives Corrin their pseudo status would be the up smash, which technically uses Corrin's hands, which yes are turned into sort of dragon piercing things, but hey, they're still Corrin's hands after all. And our last Pseudo-Shoto is actually my main, Banjo and Kazooie. Banjo has two different types of eggs being used in the projectile slot. Their neutral air and their dash attack are technically forward-moving spinning attacks, and Banjo's jab 3 is in itself an uppercut, so as weird as it is, I'm technically gonna count it. Look at me guys, I main a Shoto in this game. So now with all the Pseudo-Shotos involved, let's take a look at our roster. So after all is said and done, there are very few slots left, and that means that our final characters are the true Shotos of this game. Let's take a look at who they are. Now instead of going in roster order like usual, I'm just gonna start with the two very obvious picks. Ryu and Ken are both Shotos. Being the characters that inspired the Shoto term in the first place, of course, all of these characters are represented in-game in Super Smash Bros. With a Shoryuken, a Tatsu, and a Fireball. These are as true as it gets, baby. Now Terry is technically in a weird category of his own. He does have a Fireball for a projectile, and he does have several uppercut moves, one of which being his up tilt. But it's questionable if his backwards facing side B technically counts as a Tatsu. I don't know, I would technically count this even though it's not really a traditional spinning kick, but he does spin and kick, so can't really argue with that, can ya? And now for our sort of wonky picks, the characters that you wouldn't really think would be true Shotos, but actually are. Our first character up is going to be Luigi, who, again, does actually have a Fireball for his neutral B. Both Luigi's up tilt and his up B are actually uppercuts, and his down B is actually a spinning forward moving attack. While it's not a traditional Tatsu in the sense that it's not a kick, this is pretty much as close as we get to a traditional Shoto in Super Smash Bros. Aside from the fighting game characters. And the last character that fits this bill is Mega Man. Mega Man's side B is a bomb, which you could still technically count as a Fireball since it does kind of set the opponent on fire. And he has both a spinning forward attack in the form of his dash attack, and his up tilt is also an uppercut. So now that we've gone through the entire roster and determined which characters are and are not Shotos, I think it's time to ask the biggest question of all. What does Kazuya count as? In order to do that, let's just check out his reveal trailer, since that's all we have at the time of filming. Kazuya doesn't really have a fireball, but in his demon form he does have that laser attack, which, you know, that does look like a projectile to me. And in Kazuya's move showcase, we literally see a few moves that say uppercut, and there is one move that is just a triple spin kick. So if you ask me, I would say he fits under the category of a Pseudo-Shoto. Whether you consider Kazuya to be a true Shoto or not, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, guys. Each community can feel free to use the word in any kind of way that they choose. In the FGC, it might mean a character that's got those 3 characteristics, but in Smash Bros, we can just use it to refer to the characters that originally come from fighting games. While the FGC has used this term for quite a long time to mean one very specific type of character, that doesn't mean that Smash players can't use it in their own different way. Like, believe me, if you told me that somebody was ghosting me on social media, I wouldn't think that they literally died and became a ghost, now would I? At the end of the day, this entire argument was just driven by some larger people in the Smash Bros community who just want to be technically correct about something. But regardless of how you slice it, I'm sure Smash players are not going to be changing the way that they use this term anytime soon. So there, we're done. Essentially, I just spent 6 hours of my life recording this video and going through every character's moveset just to tell you guys that this argument is stupid. Did I waste my time or what? Thank you for checking out the video. Let me know what you guys think about the Shoto debate in the comments down below, and let me know if you want to see more content like this. I seriously hope you don't, because this took goddamn forever to film. If you're still sticking around this long, why don't you give that video a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this, and comment below telling me which character you think is and isn't a Shoto. Thank you guys for checking out this dissension into chaos, and until next time guys, take care. Should I do this for anime sorties next? No.